Hello, everyone.
I was going to go.
Megan, I'm so sorry. You're doing the introduction again?
Thunder Thief.
Are you?
I thought, what did we decide?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
You first.
No.
Okay.
No,
You go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Maryland Living Podcast. We are back with my co-hosts, John and Pete.
Hello.
2025.
Here we are.
It is 2025.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
New Year.
You want to hear something really funny, actually, as I was trying to explain to my kids about Y2K. And that's been 25 years.
That is so hard to believe.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? I was like, people were stockpiling water and batteries and flashlights.
Power
We
sources.
thought,
Yeah, like the whole infrastructure, the whole grid was expected to shut down at the stroke of midnight.
yeah.
It's chaos.
January 1st to the year 2000.
Yeah.
It was a total non-event. Zero happened.
I know. It was kind of, it's crazy. It's interesting.
Anticlimactic.
They were really having a hard time wrapping their head around it. It was kind of funny.
Well, I haven't thought about that in
Well, they
25 years.
They've only known like cell phones and all the stuff that we had to kind of grow into.
Right. I know.
True.
Yeah.
Did you guys do anything fun for New Year's?
Not enough. We went to a couple little local bars, just had a drink with some friends, had an invite to my neighbor's party and an invite to my friend's house in Catonsville, and we just didn't feel like going out. We didn't want to be on the road.
Yeah,
So,
we didn't go out either, and none of my kids went out either, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the recommendation of my youngest daughter, my wife and I and my youngest daughter decided to watch Little Women.
I love Little Women.
Well, I wouldn't know because I fell asleep halfway through it. So that was my wild New Year's Eve.
So we had the most Maryland parental New Year's Eve ever. We went to Great Wolf Lodge in Perryville. And for those that are not familiar, which I don't think you guys have been there.
No.
I know what it is. I
assuming.
haven't been.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in Perryville, just north of Baltimore. And actually, we had a really good time. The kids loved it. So for those that don't know, it's an indoor water park. They've got slides. They've got a wave pool. They've got...
Bars.
They do have a bar, yeah. And then if you are kind of sick of the water park, you can actually go
To the bar.
You can go mini golfing, bowling, and actually, what's kind of interesting is they were at capacity over the
believe it.
holidays.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't feel that way. I mean, there was a lot of people, but it didn't feel as though we didn't wait in line for more than 5 minutes for really
Wow.
anything.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was fun. I mean, I think it's a good way for parents to kind of ring in the new year, and my boys loved it, so it was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another interesting thing I did over the holidays was I showed a house in Canton, showed a couple houses in Canton, and then I went to this really cool new restaurant in Canton Square called the Worthington.
How was it?
Actually, it was really good. It's a sports bar.
Yeah.
The food was really good. The service was great.
Awesome.
That's a really vibrant part of that neighborhood, the Canton Square, O'Donnell Square, whatever it's called. It's a really good area. There's a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars.
The Caros, isn't that where that is?
It might be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We had a good time. I went with my best friend, and she lives near Patterson Park, and it's kind of a regular spot for her. But yeah, you can have events there. Anyway, it was really good.
Sweet.
I really liked it.
Speaking of Canton and restaurants, Pete, you brought to our attention
There's some big news happening. So Pussers, which is an institution in Annapolis, it's at Ego Alley. It's been there for 30 years. Anybody who's been to Annapolis and the downtown area has probably at least seen it because it has a big, it's right on the waterfront, and they have docking available, and everybody likes to go there and have a Painkiller, which is their famous drink.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. So the biggest news here that ties Canton into this is that after 30 years, the Pussers is going to be relocating to Baltimore, and in fact, they're going to be at Canton's Lighthouse Point Marina. That was previously the Drift Bar, and there's like 350 slips there. So, I mean, it's totally water-centric.
I know exactly where that is.
Chesapeake Bay ready. The new spot's actually going to be called Pussers Landing, and there's going to be 10 to 15 slips which are reserved strictly for Pussers patrons, which, again, is going to be, keep that whole waterfront vibe going. And I'm sure they'll be able to draw a lot of people coming from Annapolis because it's just a short boat ride to get there. They are signing an initial 10-year lease with that Canton Lighthouse Point Marina.
Oh,
nice.
And then they have the option of 3 5-year options. So they really can do a 25-year lease if things are going well, which I imagine they will. Now, getting back to Annapolis, there's actually in that, the site previously, which was Pusser's, Atlas Group, which is a huge restaurant group. They are opening and they're starting, renovation work already for an upscale Italian chop house, which is going to be named Marmo.
Wow.
And then there's also a Mexican cantina, which is going to go in that space as well, which is going to be the Armada. So if you're familiar with Atlas, they do some really high-end stuff like the Chop Tank, which is a couple doors up.
Yep.
What's the one at Harbor East or Harbor Point? A Cuba Bay or something like that?
I think it might. The Atlas Group, they do a lot.
They do a lot.
Yeah, I think they have a Baltimore base too. So, I mean, this will be a nice, whatever Pusser's turns into should be at least a nice upscale option.
Yeah.
But it's really good news for Canton and Baltimore because a lot of these restaurants are kind of pulling out, whereas this one's pulling in.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great for the city.
Annapolis's loss is Baltimore's gain.
Absolutely.
I'm just glad that they're staying local.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is super random. Did you guys ever see that movie, The Wedding Crashers?
Oh, yeah, of
I mean,
course.
Many times.
Right,
It's a
right.
classic.
Yeah.
So you guys know the sailboat called the Woodwind
Yep.
is parked outside of Pusser's on Ego Alley.
Nice.
And that is the sailboat from the movie Wedding Crashers.
I don't think I knew that.
I didn't know. I
Yeah.
did. I knew the movie was filmed here. I knew that like the big house is over in St. Michael's. I think it's
Yes.
like an inn or
It's
an
something
inn,
like that.
At
Yeah.
the inn at Perry Cabin.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Which I heard that when Taylor Swift came to town, that's where she stays.
Yeah.
She flies in over
Her
there.
entourage.
Yeah.
So I always thought Pusser's was kind of an interesting name. So I put on my nerd hat, did a little research to see where that name came from.
Okay.
And it comes from the rum. Pusser's rum traces its heritage to the British Royal Navy. And for over 300 years, the Royal Navy issued a daily rum ration known as the tot to sailors. The rum became known as Pusser's because pusser was a slang term for the purser, and the purser was the ship supply officer who was responsible for giving out the rum
Okay.
to the crew.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So-
Huh.
Speaking of rum, I don't know if you guys are aware that you can, when you order a Painkiller, you get to order the level 2, 3, or 4.
Oh, I'm quite familiar.
Yeah, from your previous days.
Uh-huh.
So what that accounts for is the amount of ounces of rum in each drink. So if you get a Painkiller 2, you're getting 2 ounces. Obviously 4 is 4 ounces. So you might not want to jump behind the wheel of your boat or a car if you're having a couple Painkillers and hitting the heavy ones.
Yeah.
It's a good drink.
It is. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, the BVI, British Virgin Islands bar that originated the Painkiller was actually known as the Soggy Dollar Bar because they literally didn't even have a dock. So there'd be these boating patrons that would come in. They'd literally have to jump in the water and swim to the bar so all their dollars were soggy. That's kind of the backstory on that. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. Okay.
And
That's
just
really cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Just one more interesting kind of fact about Pusser's. When we say it's an institution, what makes an institution that is the people. And they were able to, their staff was so dedicated. 40% of the staff was there for a solid decade. 20% of the staff was there for two decades.
Wow.
And then 10% were there from the inception. 30 years in the game.
And Pete, you and I came up in food service. We know the turnover.
Oh, yeah.
is-
Yeah.
Yeah, so that really says a lot about
That
Pusser's.
says-
So
That says
hopefully some of
big
those
lot.
folks are going to make it to the Canton bar too.
Well, that's good. I knew they were closing, and I didn't realize they were moving. So that's good news.
And what's really cool, the general manager and one of the employees of 10 years, they're the ones buying it. So it's going to stay in the hands
okay.
of the employees. So that's really cool.
Do you all know what's in a Painkiller?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you?
Rum, cream of coconut, pineapple juice, orange juice, and nutmeg.
So it's four parts of orange juice, one part of grapefruit, and one part of the coconut cream. So
Okay.
obviously you rum to
Kind of.
balance it out.
You mentioned something else
Making me
going
thirsty.
on. You mentioned something else going on in Annapolis. The iconic Annapolis Mall.
Oh yeah.
It's
It
being
is
sold. Yeah.
I don't have details on it, but I just read an article that said it's being sold. So that's kind of a big deal. That's an anchor for Annapolis.
Yeah.
I hate to
yeah.
say it, but I haven't been to that mall in years, and I know that so many malls in the area are probably in the country rather are kind of failing. Like in many ways, their best days are behind them. Is that the case with Annapolis also?
I don't think so. I mean, I know they have a newer wing in there.
Okay.
And I don't see a lot of businesses pulling out. They have the anchor restaurants in place.
Okay.
And the movie theater.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I mean.
Yeah.
Who knows? I think when Nordstrom pulled out of there, and I think they did that just because their rent was astronomical. I think that kind of changed the dynamic there a little bit because there were higher end stores. I haven't been in there in a long time. The last time I went in there, there's actually a library in there now, which is kind of unique for a mall.
Yeah,
that is unique.
And then they've got animals in there. Yeah, it's kind of, you go to like a certain wing of it and you can smell the animals.
Yeah,
but
I think that's the newer side.
I know, like, was it, what's the Owings Mills Mall, Western Baltimore County, it failed tremendously. It's gone. They leveled it. They built, I think it's a Home Depot and a shopping center there.
What's our one
I've heard that
gym
too.
in there? That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
I think, I think Columbia Mall is still doing well. I
That's a great
think
one.
Towson Town Center is still doing well. All the big anchors are still there. It'll be interesting to see what unfolds.
Yeah, like I said, I mean,
Annapolis.
it's really an anchor of Annapolis and so easy to get to. So
Yeah.
be interesting to see what
Something else kind of odd that's happening in Annapolis, which is it's kind of worth mentioning. I don't know. I came across this and it made me go, "What is going on?" Did you guys hear? There's a leaf blower ban.
Oh yeah, that's
in
a lot.
Annapolis.
It's a lot of counties that's.
Oh, is it?
happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'd never
Yeah.
heard of this before. But anyway, it took effect on January 1st, and in the city
It's a
of Annapolis,
gas-powered
yes.
leaf blower
It's
ban.
noise
Yeah.
pollution essentially.
Yeah.
And if you get caught, it's $100, $100 fine.
It's going to kill these landscaping companies.
I did read that it even
Yeah.
takes effect for the landscaping
Yeah,
companies
because they have to use battery power. How do you charge them after a job?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a
good
nightmare.
point.
Or you buy a
Yeah.
ton of batteries. That's outrageous.
Or just keep them plugged in, which is one. I have a leaf blower that's plugged in, and it's a pain.
Yeah, they're good for like,
It's like
half an hour.
They pass laws to, hopefully do some good, but there's always like that, the law of unintended consequences,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
And
unfortunate.
landfills are going to be full of all these gas. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Apparently, it had to
it's
do with
not
noise, but how noisy can it really? I don't know.
The backpack blowers are, if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, people are running those things for 3 hours straight.
That's true. Good
can
point.
be something,
that
but-
can be annoying.
Yeah.
I think the ban is more annoying than anything, personally.
Hey, back to the whole Happy New Year thing. I think it's worth noting that Lando Jackson was the first baby born in Maryland.
Yeah.
He arrived at 12:01 a.m. at University of Maryland, St. Joseph Medical Center in Towson.
Okay.
Welcome,
So
Lando.
welcome, Lando, and
Welcome to Maryland.
Yep.
welcome to life, buddy.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Living.
Well, we have some guests coming up in January.
Very exciting.
I'm very
do.
excited.
We
Yeah,
do.
we've had a couple people reach out that want to be on the podcast, and then we've reached out to a couple of folks that we thought would be really interesting. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
I'm happy to share with everyone that our first confirmed guest next week. They're kind of like the Captain and Tennille of real estate, the Ike and Tina Turner.
I like that one.
Barry Hess and Wendy Hess. Barry is the broker of Keller Williams Flagship, which is one of the largest, most productive real estate houses in the region. And Wendy Hess, his wife, is the CEO of that same brokerage. So we're interested to sit down with them and hear their Maryland story.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm excited to hear. I have never actually heard kind of how the business came about. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of hear their story and
Because they've done a good job. They've really built a powerhouse.
right
And from the ground up,
yeah.
really. It was super small.
Yeah. And they didn't always start out in real estate either. So that
Right.
kind of makes it even more interesting.
No
so.
spoilers, but I think we'll hear a little bit about the giant grocery store on Wilkins Avenue.
I hope so.
I thought it
Cool.
was A&P for some reason.
No, it was Giant.
No.
That was
But we'll let them
my
tell you.
in-laws,
Yeah. So we've got
Yeah,
that
that's right.
going on. And then we're wrapping up here, but I just wanted to give a shout out to our producer, Brianna. She has just been a huge help to us. This is not easy starting a podcast, especially when you're just lack like any tech savvy skills whatsoever.
Yeah, we're just three people that like to talk. We don't know the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, we're just the talent.
Right.
Is that what we are?
We are.
Okay.
But,
Speak for yourself.
What's important to note that Brianna is actually a product of Barry and Wendy.
That is true.
That's true.
Yeah,
That is
their
true.
daughter.
We really appreciate her and
family
want to
gathering.
thank her. And then we also now we have an email address, marylandlivingpodcast@gmail.com. So if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you have questions for us, or there's a topic that you would like us to talk about, you can send an email there. And then also they can go right on the podcast itself.
Right in the podcast episode on all of the platforms, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on Amazon. There's now a link in the podcast description. The listeners can click that and send us a text. We receive it instantaneously in real time. And
we want to hear from you guys. So if there's something you love about Maryland and you want to hear us talk more about it, we haven't talked a ton about real estate. I think we'll talk more about that later. Some of our guests I think we have coming up can kind of touch on some really helpful
absolutely
conversations about real estate. But
and while you're sending us emails and shooting us text, while you're in those platforms, if you could please give us a review.
Yeah, and share
Share.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, last but not least, we are on Instagram. So Maryland Living Podcast on Instagram. You can find us there. And we're sharing, some of the topics that we talk about on the podcast. You can go there and find links to some of the events that we're talking about, and also some of the news articles that we're talking about too.
We'll throw up some notes about pussers in there.
Yeah.
I think that would be informative.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I hope everyone has a very productive week and start to their new year and keeping those New Year's resolutions. And we'll talk to you all soon.
See you next week.
See you.
Do you wanna go into the city?